I forgot.
I emailed you and
I know, because I brought my computer with me, but I wouldn't know anybody go back there and come through. Yeah, still back in church tomorrow, so much going on. I gotta do the thing. No, yeah. Yeah. So,
Time is now 5:30. We call this county council meeting to order. We begin with the introduction by Councilwoman Clark, followed by the pledge of allegiance. All those ready, please stand.
Okay, Father, we come to say thank you. Thank you, Jesus, for allowing us to gather once more in the camp. Let us order ourselves, conduct the business of the county, Lord God. Oh, Father God, be in the midst as we make decisions, Lord God. Touch each and every one on the sound of my voice. In Jesus' name, I pray.
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move to the approval of the agenda. You have already noticed, we have a change. Boy Scouts Troop 67 had something come up, or unable to deal with this this evening, but they will hope to be visiting us in the very near future. So we will need to trash them from Forest Council. They're actually coming to get their the legislation badge. They're coming to get a merit badge, and we look forward to having them very soon. We do need to make a couple of additions. One, in reports to council, Mr. Higgs is going to give us an update on the ARPA grant submissions. I know we all have them to explain for the public and just a synopsis of what all we got going on. And then under new business, letter F, we're going to add a discussion on zoning. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda?
The amendments to the agenda, I move that the agenda be approved as amended.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Clark. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes 6-0. All right, next we'll move into the minutes approval from the regular session on March 22nd and the committee as a whole on March 15th.
Like those together or separate, Chairman? Make a motion, we approve the March 22nd, 2022 regular session minutes, as well as the March 15th, 2022 meeting as a whole.
Motion by Mr. Carroll,
Second.
second by Ms. Anderson. Are there any additions or deletions to those sets of minutes? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. All right, next we'll move into the reports to council. I'll call on Mr. Higgs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to give a brief update on the ARP applications and where we're at today. You remember, or if you recall, we broke these down into several categories, primarily two. One being infrastructure, the others, other programs within the county, or organizations, nonprofits, institutions that can apply for ARPA funding. We've received in the infrastructure category a total of 5 requests. That request adds up to $4,590,000, $4,590,549.40. And that's 5 applications. In the other category, we received a total of 34 applications. The dollar amount, if I read correctly, is $9,250,792 total. So those are our two categories, and those are the amount of applications. Just to go over the timeline, again, we tentatively scheduled a timeline. Number one, we had a hard deadline date of April 1st. That's come and gone. These are all the applicants that we're going to take. Submission times closed. Now we're in the review portion of that process, and the tentative date we established was the 29th of April for that review to be done by council. Of course, it's like that's at council's discretion if they wanted to establish some form of like a workshop or something like that to go over it. That's for discussion amongst yourselves, but that was the tentative deadline.
All right, thank you. Absolutely.
We can get for 13 million.
We didn't allocate but 2.5.
That's what I'm trying to, you won't even let me finish that. And so I was trying to figure out here, the same amount we allocated for, I know what we did for the, infrastructure. Because, we set that out of the amount of money, so for the applicants, the 34 applicants, how much money did we set aside for them?
That was $2.5 million.
2.5, okay. Thank you. And I was wondering, trying to figure out some categories to help me to get through. And while I was viewing them, the range was very wide. And I think the least amount of money that was asked for was like $14,000. And the most I can remember is like 350. Okay. 1.9. And so I was putting that to the side. I knew it wasn't but not, you know, I want to be open. So I was really trying to categorize it. Are we going to try to look at something like that if we can, so we can narrow something down? So when we do come to the table, we can be able to work through the process maybe a little bit.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment? I want to thank all the applicants, first of all, because this is a very strenuous process. That application was not easy, and I know it took a lot of effort and hard work to put that application together. So I want to thank everyone for applying, first of all. But secondly, to that point, most applications are great, and there are a lot of great organizations. So I got a rough road ahead of you, but I'm going to leave that for your discussion.
That's what I was trying to put some of the rough spots out of it, and, you know, not smooth some over. I don't know how we're going to do it, but did y'all come up with any kind of suggestion?
For the public that are here tonight, this is just the nonprofit section, and the infrastructure one's about this thick. And we can receive these. We have digital and hard copies, and we received those last Tuesday, and I'm sure we've all been going through them as we can. I think we need to set a date and do, like Mr. Hicks mentioned, a workshop, like the next council meeting or sometime. But I do agree we need some categories, because we have a small ask, big ask, and an extremely big ask. I also think that we should set we have parameters in general of what the money can go to, but just maybe as a discussion amongst council about where we see the money going. I said from day one, I want to make sure we do whatever we can to have the most effect on the most citizens of this county that we can. And I thought that's very important still. And the ones that were truly impacted the most by COVID are not the most deserving of the ARPA monies. But I'm open to suggestions. Do we want to have a standalone day where we can delve into this? Do we want to meet for a council meeting? What's the council in general?
Set aside Tuesdays, most of us try not to sign up for things on Tuesday nights. That's council. I got some professional testing to do the following week.
So you think the evening of the 19th, next Tuesday?
That works for me, Mr. Chair.
How does that sit with everybody?
Okay, I want to read Tuesday over.
All right, so we'll set next Tuesday, April the 19th 5:30 to have a committee as a whole to review the ARPA applications. We will begin with the nonprofits, of course, and then work into the infrastructure. I know there's one here tonight, for one of the infrastructure applications. Our priority definitely be the nonprofits, and if we have to push the infrastructure ones into the next week, we would potentially review those after the next council meeting. There were only 5 of those, so those will be a little easier to go through. But the nonprofits are definitely the priority number 1. All right, that's settled. Griffin, we'll get us an agenda together and get that published. I would greatly appreciate it. All right. On to old business. Are there any submissions from council members for board appointments? Here none. We do have one submission from the hospital board. I believe Mr. John Young is here. I'll call on him to step to the mic. He's representing the council. He cannot be here this evening. Over to you, sir.
Dr. Amika Thomas has been selected by our board to replace the outgoing Dr. Byron Parker. Very well qualified person, currently serves as the superintendent of school district 55. We met with her, talked with her, explained the way the organization operates and its purpose, and she's very willing to participate on the board. So, recommend that you approve.
All right. We'll call Mr. Chris. What's the proper protocol? Motion and second.
Yes.
Okay. I'll take a motion to accept recommendations for Dr. Amika Thomas to be appointed to the Lawrence County Hospital Board.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Dr. Amika Thomas to be appointed to the hospital.
Second by Ms. Clark. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, next on old business, we discussed at the last meeting a little bit on RV parks, ordinance number 872. I believe several council members had some input and some ideas, and Mr. Kirkshine, I appreciate you putting those on paper for us. You have a draft here in your packet. The number on the front is ordinance 918. This will be an amendment to 872. We got a chance to review it, and I'll just be in draft and for consideration, not necessarily the first reading. I'll just open the floor for discussion to see where we are on the RV ordinance. Keeping in mind, we do still have a moratorium on the RV parks at the moment. This would, if we take action on this upon the completion of third reading, would alleviate that moratorium.
Mr. Chairman, I asked for this to be drafted, and I don't have a clear-cut idea in my mind of where this is going exactly. And I wanted to, put something down on paper that would begin a discussion about this. For your consideration, Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate to send this to the Planning Commission and ask them to take a look at it before we even get first reading on it? I realize that we can drag out the second and third readings, that we may need to put the ball in play. If we think that's the more appropriate way, that's fine to do. I just I want to get the maximum amount of feedback on this, get a feel for where I want to get everybody's opinion who has an opinion about it on the table.
All right, since the chairman of the planning commission is here, I'll ask if he's okay accepting that if we send it back to them. Absolutely. All right. Comments from other council members?
I understand where Dave is coming from. I still have a lot of questions in my mind, but there are questions that relate to other things, so. And I think anytime we can have a broad enough picture to understand all the ramifications of what we're doing, it's the best way out.
This is the RVs.
We're going to RV ordinance.
Yeah. Well, would it be? For a new planner to sit in and
I'm sure the new planner will be quite active in all of that. I would- Absolutely, our new planner will be definitely active in that with the planning commission.
This is an amendment to an ordinance we worked on 2020 maybe. Some of the concerns people have is just the ability for an RV park to be established. And I don't know that this amendment prevents the establishment, it just quantifies what things have to be done to do that. There are some changes, so I'd like the planning commission to look at it and make sure that it even does anything different than what's in the existing ordinance.
All right, I think the way we're leaning is sent back to the planning commission. I'm curious about the timeline. I think I've expressed before that we probably let this moratorium drag on a little longer than we should have. I personally think when the planning commission worked really hard and then at council, we made some adjustments even when it got to us, the date right now, October of 2020. And I honestly thought it was a good ordinance. I really did. I know there's stress over, moreover, the location of where they're going, not necessarily what's happening within the parks, is the feeling that I continue to get from the public, is there's a lot of stress on that, which we're having a zoning discussion tonight, and that's what zoning addresses. And I would just ask if the planning commission does visit this, that you look at the merits of the ordinance and make sure that it's like you're dealing with, when the ordinance deals with what's inside that park. The zoning ordinance would deal more with where that park goes. And you can, I mean, there's a few things in this amendment that, you know, depending on the setbacks and the distance from residences, it would curtail greatly where once something could be placed. And maybe some of that is warranted. But I'm still interested in us setting the timeline on this, because there's people out there right now who invested a lot of money already in using their land as they wanted to, as they have every right to at the moment in this county. And I feel like we're continuing to drag on our property owners, and I think we're leaving them on a little too far. Is there a feel for setting a timeline on either when we get this back from the planning commission or when the moratorium lifts, regardless of if they've had the opportunity to finalize anything? What's the feeling on that from other council members?
The last time we did it, we gave, I tell you what, we left it an open-ended sentence, really, because what we did, we said, when we had the planner to get here, I think it was an open-ended one. And so that was left open to when we received the planner. We had a lot of issues, you know, trying to get an applicant for that particular position. So that pushed it out further and further. So I thought we came back and we set up something like 6 months or something. Did we not? What did we say?
We discussed it at the last meeting, but we didn't take any motions or pass anything. But we did have that discussion at the last meeting. And now we're just continuing that this evening.
What do you think would be fair? Or, well, I cannot ask that question.
I tell you what, Mr. Royer, if you don't mind speaking, how much time does your committee need?
I would hate to press to try to put it in next week. So we only meet once a month. That would be next month's meeting. If that would be all right. If you guys are amenable to it. Head time. If there's other options that are available, if you'd like us to send them up to you via email ahead of time, so we can discuss options ahead of time before our meeting.
If you'd like to contact individual council members, that's probably not a horrible idea, but and any council member that has input, I would definitely encourage to go to their meetings to give that input to them as they're working on this ordinance. Because even once you give it back to us, best case is 6 weeks. It's usually at least 8 to 10 normally. So, you know, we're talking about 4 months, best case scenario, if y'all start right now talking about it and take 2 meetings to address it. So best case, getting it back to us, getting it on our agenda, us going through our process of approval. We're 4 months out right now.
I'd say we could send it back to you after next month.
Okay. I'd just like to put time on it so that these folks that are planning and waiting, at least they know, because the unknown in any aspect of life is no fun. And it allows for no planning versus if we say that the moratorium is ending upon third reading or at a fixed date and time, I think would be encouraging to business owners that are looking to call Lawrence home and establish a business here.
I'd say we could send it back to you or in any unforeseen circumstances after May 17th.
How does either passage of a new ordinance or July 31st? Anybody have any heartburn on that? Whichever comes first. So that way, if planning commission does their job, gets back to us, we go do our job or vice versa, and we just keep trying to kick the can down the road, it would have an end date. Regardless of whether we change the ordinance or not. Ideally, we'll change the ordinance and it'll be approved before then, and be updated, and it would end up on that date. Nobody has any heartburn, I'll be happy to make that motion.
Again,
July 31.
and it's the planning commission, the whole idea behind it is placement of these parks. That's the thing. I'm saying it's not how they're built. Am I right on that? It's really, it's not how they're built, it's the placement of them.
So that is the gripe, yes. But when it comes to the ordinance governs how they're built.
That's fine. So the moratorium is,
Moratorium prevents them from being even requested.
okay.
It stops them from happening. I personally feel like we're handicapped on restricting their placement physically. But like there's one of the ones in here is location of any campground must be a minimum of 300 yards from any existing residence. Well, that's going to tell where they go. There have to be a football field left and right wherever this thing's going. So that'll adjust the areas that it can go into naturally based on those restrictions. But they can't put in here that they can't build any on Main Street. I guess it could, but that's not practical. And I feel like that's kind of the problem we're running into. A lot of things is people are worried about where they're going, but we don't have the legislative power to necessarily address that today. I think it will in the future. That makes sense, Ms. Jones. All right, well, if nobody said anything, I will make a motion that RV parks be governed under moratorium until third and final reading and passage of a new RV ordinance or July 31st, 2022, whichever comes first.
Second.
Has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes 6 6-0. I appreciate all the input from council members and once again encourage all of you to reach out to the planning commission to express your concerns, desires, so forth as they begin to work on this new ordinance for the council. All right, next we have a resolution 2022-17C. It was a resolution basically memorializing where we stand currently on our industrial prospects that are in FILO agreements and which parks they reside in. I appreciate Mr. Kirschner putting this together just for everyone's benefit, and then I'll do to ask that we continue to do this at least once a year just to memorialize where everything sits.
Actually, we'll probably do it more often.
Okay.
The part, the master agreements on these allow additions or deletions by resolution. So I would expect as, rather than kind of got behind the 8 ball, I didn't get caught up on these. It's probably every time we have a new company announced, once the process is finished, we'll have a resolution to add company XYZ to whichever of the 5 parts that it fits.
And just for record purposes, we aren't moving anybody today. These are just memorializing where everybody's.
This is just memorializing where they are and setting forth so the council and the general public can see where the 5 parks. And those are names, those aren't contiguous parks, they're areas. Okay. You have somebody who went into the county being park and the other.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2022-17C?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of resolution 2022-17C.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Anderson and a second by Mr. Carroll. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. And to the new business, we have a fair housing resolution. Resolution 2022-15C. I'll call on Mr. Cruikshanks. I believe this is an annual resolution.
It is, this is just to designate April as Fair Housing Month. The clerk has submitted the required publication to newspapers. It will be published tomorrow.
Awesome.
And again, it's an annual event.
All right. We have a motion to approve resolution 2022-15C.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Clark and a second by Mr. Carroll. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of 2022-15C, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Next, we have a resolution to recognize one of our local entities. I'm not bore you with this entirety, but I would like to call him forward. Mr. Young, you'll step forward one more time for me. Mr. John Young, President CEO of the Lawrence Commission of Public Works. They are celebrating their 100-year anniversary this year.
Yes, sir.
For 100 years of reliable neighborly utility service to its customers and the community for 100 years. May the next 100 years be as equally prosperous for all. We appreciate all you do for this community. You're very instrumental in some of these industries we just mentioned. A couple of us use your services on a regular basis. A lot of our county facilities use your service. Y'all provide quality service. Y'all give back to the community on a regular basis. And all that's greatly appreciated. We thank you for all that the CPW does for us and works with the county as we do. Hopefully, this is going to be voted favorably in a minute. Once we get the signatures, we'll get you a pretty plaque, and I'd love to come to the CPW and present that to you and your team once we have that later this week.
Very good. Well, on behalf of the commissioners and the rest of our employees, I really appreciate the recognition that y'all provide.
Thank you so much. Well, do I have a motion to approve a resolution recognizing and congratulating the Lawrence Commission of Public Works for 100 years of service?
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Carroll.
Second by Mr. Young. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. You made it, John, barely. All right, next, I'm gonna call on Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a, we're gonna put out an RFP or request for proposals on our audit service. This is something we're just gonna advertise and see what kind of bid we get. Basically, it falls within our procurement process and everything else, so we're just seeking council permission to go ahead and put that request for proposal on.
All right, you have a president administrator for an RFP for a new audit.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve of our administrator to reach out for options for our, or either our FP or the audit.
Motion by Ms. Anderson. Second by Ms. Clark. Is there any discussion or questions?
Is this something we do ever so often, send out the bid so that we,
In my opinion, we should be, it just lets us know, who's out there and what they're capable of and what they can provide as a service to, our county and our taxpayers.
I want to thank Mr. Nate Morrow. She has come on board with us over the past little bit, has done a phenomenal job in the finance department. We appreciate you and look forward to seeing when these RFPs come back and see where we go from there. And I know that you and Mr. Hicks are working diligently on the budget, and the council is also excited to see the results of that. But thank you for all you do for us. All righty. That being said, we have a motion and a second to approve the release of an audit RFP. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. All right, next I'll call on Mr. Wilson to go over some bids that have come in the CPST projects.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. First off, we're going to letter D there is the bids that we submitted, that we sent out for parks recreation. We sent out 13, we got 12 back. As you can see on the tally sheets that are in there, we are asking your approval to award these to these companies. We need to get this equipment on order because some of it's going to take as much as 6 to 7 months to get. The only one that we don't have back, you have 12 bids there, tab sheets that came back. The only one that we're waiting on is the splash pad. We are still doing some work on pump sizes and things of water pressure sizes and things like that to figure out which ones we need to go with exactly to fit all of the neighborhoods in these things or places where these are going. So the splash pads will be brought to you probably the next meeting. But right now we're asking that you all look through there. I think there's 3 on there that are actually local vendors that we are using, and the rest are the playground manufacturers, actual manufacturers. So yes, you look at these award on us with the award out.
I was going to comment. I'll go ahead and make it now. I was excited to see, 1, so many bids, because that makes the process much more competitive. But 2, a lot of the true low bids and the selections that are being made here that we're getting ready to approve, the majority of them, it's not, all of them but 1 are even in South Carolina. There's several that are within our county. The rest are, except for 1 that I saw there, was actually located in South Carolina. So it's good to see, especially for those local bids here in the county. The CPST that was voted on by the local voters is being paid by local citizens and transient visitors is going back into our community to local businesses. And that's all that's reassuring to see that, 1, they participated in our bid process and came in low bid. It was good to see.
Right, there was a phenomenal response to these things. We had them all due on one day, and it took like 3 hours to go through them. So
You want
no,
to
totally all. That was very exciting to be a part of. because that's the largest one I've been part of since I've been here, so that was great.
Well, you've heard the recommendation by the person director, and you have before you all the bids. I would take a motion to approve the bids for the CPST projects for the Parks and Rec departments.
I move for approval of the bids pertaining to the CPS project for recreation department.
Motion by Ms. Anderson and a second by Mr. Carroll. We need the dollar figures.
The dollar figures, I think, are as stated. My only question would be, is are these within the approved limits
Yes.
from the referendum?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Carroll to approve the CPST Parks bid request as stated in your packet. Is there any other discussion or questions? Here none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Thank you, Billy. I appreciate you working with us. That was a long bid opening that I heard about, and we look forward to getting some of that rolling and seeing some of these projects come out of the ground.
I appreciate it. If you don't mind, I've got the next
I
one.
believe you have the next one as well. Go right ahead.
All right, this one here is for the Sheriff's Department Evidence Facility, J.M. Cope Construction. We had 6 bids come back on this, which is great too. J.M. Cope, they're headquartered in Rock Hill, but they have offices in the upstate of Greenville and Spartanburg. So I asked that, you all see the amount that came back. Low bid was $1,696,615. I think we have roughly 1.9 million that was budgeted for that process, or I think 1.8 maybe. But anyway, if you come in under, we ask that you approve it, go ahead and award that to J.M. Cope Construction Company.
You've heard the recommendation from the person director. Are there any questions for him? If not, I will take a motion.
Motion to approve bids pertaining to the sheriff's office evidence facility in the amount of $1,696,615. J.M. Cope Construction.
Motion by Mr. Carroll. Second by Ms. Clark. Is there any further discussion on this one? All right.
Call me. If you think of it.
Hearing no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the bids pertaining to the sheriff's office evidence facility, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Thank you. I know the CPSC had a lot to your office, and I appreciate all your hard work and getting all this put together for us. Thank you. All right, next we have the added agenda item, discussion on zoning. I need to turn the mic over to Ms. Anderson to begin the discussion. We will go from there.
This is an issue that has been with us for a long time. An issue that we need to address and quit kicking the bucket down the road and not addressing it. And I think it's time for us to implement a process of land use and zoning so that we can move our county forward. We have tried to ignore it, and we see that it continues to come back up time and time again. And I think it's just time for us to address it. We have talked about the principle of zoning, and we tend to agree with it, but we still haven't put our money, our mouth into action. We need to have something that is that the citizen of this county know what we are expected. We need to make sure that we are meeting their needs, the infrastructure, and making sure that we are addressing the existing problems and trying to delete all the other problems that are facing them. And it's not gonna get any better because we do have growth coming, and we want the growth to be growth that we would be proud of, and not just sporadically placed all around the county. Some people call it sprawl, but we need to really work together and try to get this done. So I've brought it to the floor, and the state has given us the legislative approval that we can do this by an enabling act. And I want council to approve an ordinance for land use and zoning. Zoning is only a tool used in land use to make sure we meet the needs of the citizens. And the citizens are concerned about the infrastructure around them, who's moving in, who's moving out, what's moving across the street. And I think it would help with the morale. It would help with keeping our young people here because they can see having a home for themselves somewhere in the county. But when you do not plan, and we have worked hard and tried together, we have a planner here now, but that's not all the only reason it is. It's just that we need to face the fact and we need to put something on paper and we need to move forward. And I'm requesting the attorney, if I'm in order, that we vote tonight and just say we want to start phasing in an ordinance for land use planning / zoning. And I feel like we can do this. I need to know for sure if we can do this and address it and put it back out so we can get something done.
Anderson, I wouldn't dare call you out of order. No, you're perfectly, you got the right motion on that.
So that is what I'm going to do. I'm open to suggestions. I don't mind discussing it. And if you can give me something that you think that I need to see in a different way, I'm open to all kinds of ideas. But I think we have to move forward. I don't think we can stand still any longer. I think we have to move. We have to make a move. Because if we don't, I don't see us having a good future here in Lawrence. All the surrounding counties have zoning, a land use plan. And so only thing that means you be just a dumping ground for anything that anybody else does not want. And I can't, for the life of me, see you thinking that way. It might be one or two tonight, but you know, one or two is okay. So I'm open before I make my motion. I'm open to any suggestions, anything that you think that I need to address while we talking about. Anybody else have anything like to say?
All right. Is there any other council member that has input for this discussion?
What is the difference between a land use and
Land use is a plan and honestly an idea and a thought. Zoning is an ordinance that has teeth that basically governs what can go where. I'll let the county attorney elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, the zoning is more location, land use. You have a number of ordinances already on the books for land use. Yes, for RV parks, home parks, subdivisions. Those are all land use type regulatory ordinances. Zoning is more. It's not. This isn't a complete definition, but it's more. This area of the county is more suited for industry or agriculture or whatever. It's kind of placing things somewhat similar to what you saw in that proposed amendment on the RV park, to say 300 yards from an existing dwelling. You start putting some guidelines and areas as to where that kind of activity could take place, whether it be a horse farm or a chicken house or whatever it is. That's not certainly a complete definition, but that's the general principle that you do. It does give you something to the planning commission particularly to say, or even our codes department to say, I'm sorry, this is a great industry or project or whatever you have, but you can't put it over here. Put it over here. You can't put it over here.
What would be the intent of a motion this evening, us not having discussed, other than the word zoning, or we need zoning, or those discussions? What would be the motion? What would we be voting on?
On land use planning, the zoning is basically, is a tool used to make everything kind of safe for people around. You won't have, your noise ordinance. So it's a safety thing, it's a land value thing. And the reason I wanted something done is that every time, we had several incidences that happened here in the county where it was just by the grace of God, or either by luck of a draw, either one you want to use, as if you want to use that, certain things didn't happen. I can remember when they wanted to make a landfill over by one of the lakes. We even went to court with that. And I just think and it was just by chance that the other person backed out. But if we don't, we can't continue to just think somebody else is gonna love us enough to back out. And we're gonna be in a position that's gonna be real stressful, that it'll be totally out of our control. I'm a kind of person who believes in being proactive instead of reactive. I feel like if we are proactive, we'll get people understanding what we're trying to do and be willing to follow along. But if you react, people are gonna get tired of you reacting all the time, about this and that. You have to be proactive and want to move the county forward. You got to want to have things better for the citizen of this county. It's not that you just have to react every time something happens. And sometimes when people come to us and saying, we want you to stop this and we want you, it's nothing we can do because we do not have zoning. Nothing we really can address. And sometimes we just tell them we're great for them or whatever else. I don't know what else we say, but anyway, we don't help them because we cannot help them. And I'm looking for some teeth in it so we can be able to help the citizens here in Lawrence County.
Mr. Chairman, would it be of any benefit if we prepared something on paper so that everybody can see it and bring it to this council before, just as an idea?
So what I think would be appropriate tonight for a motion would be for the motion to be made to direct staff, any of them, to begin working on first a timeline for zoning and a plan, because that's what we talked about planning earlier. We're talking about planning now. I think we need to ask our staff and our attorney what kind of timeline are we looking at, because it's not going to happen overnight. And one thing I'm extremely adamant about as we begin this process and begin the process of talking about what goes where is that we delve, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, but we go hard into the communities and have lots and lots and lots of community meetings to give all citizens every opportunity possible to give input on what they want their community to look like. As I mentioned before, what's good for Grayford is not good for Mountain, and what's good for Reno is not good for West Shoals. It's just our county is very special And each area of the county is special and has their own identity, and they want to maintain that and deserve the opportunity to maintain that. I'll also say too, even a lot of folks will talk about Greenville County zoning. Not all of Greenville County is zoned. There are areas of Greenville County, mainly the southern part, which is why there's a landfill in it, that is unzoned. And there may be areas of this community that we find that wish to remain unzoned, and that's okay. But I think there are lots of areas, there's a lot of people here tonight that will probably tell you that there are areas of our county that need to be zoned and should have been zoned a long time ago. So I do want to make that very clear as staff makes plans. We need to ensure that there's a lot of time and a lot of opportunity for citizen input as we begin to draft these plans. I think it'll be prudent for council to determine on what level we want to zone. Do we want to do it by voting precinct, by county council district, by zip code? And there's a plethora of options of how we can pull that down. And I do feel like that would probably be a decision from this level. But I think that it would be special for the, especially important for staff to kind of put that together and bring us those ideas and say, if you do it on this level, this is what it looks like. If you do it on that level, it looks like this. I think it would be important, but out of courtesy to our staff, I would ask that they be able to bring us a timeline of what they can accomplish instead of us demanding that they do something in a time frame they're not capable of doing. So I think a motion tonight to authorize county staff to begin the process and put together a outline and timeline of the zoning process would be the first step.
I'll be willing to accept that because I just want to make sure that we have a motion, a second, and that it's in our minutes. And our minutes are our adopted minutes, and that means it stands. And that's my thing, because I know you talk about it in principle and we go and drop it. And I don't think it's something that we need to be dropping out. We've been through a referendum before. It's not, well, I don't know about the rest of the people, but I have. And, and not saying that he has, but, and we did 5 districts. I don't have a problem about how we do it, just as long as we're doing something. As long as that we are working with the citizens, and it's open to the citizens, so they can have feedback. And, but we want to let the citizens know this is the way we are going, and your feedback need to be moving down the road, and it don't need to be standing still. So saying all of that, anybody have anything else they want to say to us?
I would like to ask the administrator, you want to speak? Okay. I would like to ask the administrator on just bringing us back a proposal of timeline. Do you need 2 weeks till the next meeting, or do you need the first meeting in May? What do you need?
I think a lot of this is synonymous, so I think the timeline will help develop the strategy at the same time. So I believe one way to tackle this, and I've shared this across the board, it's kind of like making a trip somewhere. You got to know where you've been, know where you are, and know where you're going. So a lot of this is going to be a lot of research-based stuff, working with our municipalities who already have zoning. It's not like Lawrence County is the wild, wild west. A lot of these municipalities do already have land use planning in place. So setting up meetings, working with them, figuring out what worked, what didn't, what they would like to see contiguous off of their current zoning plans. So let's say Fountain Inn may have ideas of how to grow because they may look to annex or, expand, and Clinton may be the same way, and Lawrence City, and so on and so forth. And then we have some that are just common sense, like some of our industrial parks, some of those types of things. So figure out where we are and then figure out where we're going. So as we develop that timeline, it'll help us develop the strategy at the same time. Because that's, to just reiterate what the chairman said, it's going to take a lot of stakeholder input in the community, through our citizens, on what they want to see as part of this process. So I will have a timeline developed if I can attach with the Kirk's help with it. I would like for he and I, the new planner, to develop a timeline, and I would like to have it back to you by the next meeting on what that timeline looks like.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that through the assistance of our county administrator and the other employees that are needed, that we establish land use and zoning plan to be used in Lawrence County, with him establishing, if possible, the timelines and strategies needed for us to move forward.
Second.
There's a motion by Mrs. Anderson and a second by Mrs. Clark. Is there any further discussion?
We're establishing a proposal, or we're voting that we're doing zoning tonight?
Reiterate your motion for.
Wait a minute here. What are you asking?
So words matter if we're talking about.
I know where it's
minutes,
at, that's why
right?
I want to make sure what you're saying.
The discussion that was centered on this earlier was we would task the administrator and staff to bring us back a proposal of what it would look like in different options for zoning in Lawrence County.
Mhm.
The motion was we tasked them to bring back the plan for Lawrence County, not proposals. I want to make sure what we're voting on.
Okay, he said timeline and strategies. That's what he's gonna bring back at the next meeting.
I would like to request, if possible, for me to first deliver a timeline. And like I stated earlier, I think the strategy is gonna somewhat fall into that,
Okay,
honestly.
okay.
So
All right.
let me deliver on a promise to bring the timeline back on our next regular council.
And the timeline would help us to move toward zoning.
Correct.
Or do we need to say, do we need to vote on zoning and then, either come back and make a timeline?
No, I think that.
I'm listening to them.
I think the plan would be to put forth what,
A
kind of where
timeline.
we're going, a timeline and a proposal.
Okay.
After that, then it's up to council to go whatever direction that you want. to
Yeah, I
go.
won't vote on zoning tonight if I don't know what a
Yeah,
proposal might
let
look
me give you an
Okay.
example of what that would look like,
Okay.
since we'll be developing it. The timeline is for Sandy, myself, and the planner to say, hey, look, this is what we need, these are the tools we need in the toolbox to get zoning done or land use planning. And part of that may be your research portion, where we go back and see, what's been done to date, how municipalities are doing it, and have that done by a particular date, and then develop a plan, maps, public outreach in the communities, stakeholder input, those types of things, but to lay out what that would look like for your conversation purposes. So you can say, hey, this is taking way too long, we'd like to see it done this way. Roger that, we'll get it done. Or, hey, what about this? We can take that under advisement as well. So it really just be a timeline on deliverables for you as a council.
I can live with that, for tonight. We request that our county administrator, along with the correct personnel, come back to council with a timeline, to work for zoning and land use plan. Anybody agree with that?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second on the table, but to be clean, I think we need to rescind the first motion and just establish a new motion.
Or ask Ms. Clark to accept the modifications that have been discussed. And Ms. Anderson to acknowledge that that's the direction we're going.
So let me state a motion and see if we can travel down that path. So the motion on the table is to direct the county administrator and staff to establish a timeline and plan to establish zoning in Lawrence County. Zoning and land use planning in Lawrence County, and bring that back to council for further review. All right, a motion by Ms. Anderson and a agreeable second by Ms. Clark. Is there any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we will, and just for the public's clarification, we are voting on exploring zoning, not actually on zoning this evening. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Motion passes. We'll find out next week during public comments what they really think. All right, next, that is all of our regular business. We will move into public comments.
before you again. Of course, I'm coming back. Ms. Anderson, I thank you very much for your comments tonight. I'm coming back because I do have that concern as to what I see as ill-planned development and growth in Lawrence County, particularly in my district, District 1, because that's where we're seeing that real impact right now. As I stated when I was here before, I'm not opposed to growth. I know that growth is inevitable, and I know it has benefits for the county that we all are here to speak about, and the ones that, and the county that we love. We need smart growth, smart progress. That's what I'm asking for. We need affordable housing. We know that. I've spoken with Ms. Anderson about that, concerns about affordable housing. But it needs to be done right. You know, I don't have all the answers about that issue, but I think it's something that we can all work together toward trying to find the right answers. The ill-planned growth, as I said, is my concern. And I know that when you have tracts that are being added quickly with 500 plus, 900 plus homes, those scream dollar signs. Those scream dollar signs for the tax base of Lawrence County. And they scream really loud. But where in Lawrence County do the citizens put a value on our rural, agricultural, our historical properties that we're at risk of losing? The dollar signs are not screaming so loud at you, but their valuable is undeniable. And you're not going to find it in your ears, you're going to find it in your heart and any knowledge you have of what's occurring. When I was here before, I encouraged, drive down through District 1, see what we're driving, see what our roads are like. Look at the trash on the side of the road. Look at how our streams are being polluted. You need to see it. You need to see what is coming your way if it's not with you already. We need to slow down. We need to stop some of this irreparable damage that's being done to our communities and to our land. And I would ask that we take a careful look at our agricultural areas, our rural areas in Lawrence County. That's what's drawing a lot of people here. They want to be in Lawrence County, but because of that, we put it on our logos in Lawrence County, trying to highlight those benefits that we have for our citizens and our constituents. Again, I'm calling on you to put a moratorium on any future growth until some of these issues of land development, land use, and zoning are resolved. If not, we can pay for it now, but you can be assured we'll pay for it later. I know that we're going to have some strong planning requirements, zoning requirements, if we're going to keep some of those valued things that we have in place. I will tell you that I lived in Atlanta. I was born and raised here, but I lived in Atlanta. I saw the growth. I saw how these rural, scenic, beautiful areas were decimated by this cancerous growth of development and homes. You don't want to be there. You don't want to live there. I would find it hard to believe that there's a person here who would want that for Lawrence County. I came back here for multiple reasons. One of them was to get away from that. But more so, I came back to Lawrence County because this is where I wanted to retire, because of the natural beauty, because of the protected areas, because of that slower pace of life. I came back because of my attachment to my family's farm, which is over 166 years old. I want to keep it protected in Lawrence County. Even the old farmhouse is still standing on our farm. It's within sight of these developments that are encroaching on us. And as I said, they may be in District 1 now, they're coming your way. I would hope that as our counselors, that you will respect and protect those historical areas in our county, those agricultural properties, those scenic properties. I think that's probably in everybody's heart. Although, like I said, those dollar signs can scream mighty loud. I'm committed to Lawrence County. I know you're committed to Lawrence County. And I think all of us are here to stay. Do you think these developers that are coming in and building these 900 home tracts where they're throwing these cement slabs down and 2 days later they're throwing up the wood for the structure of the home, do you think they have their hearts or concerns about Lawrence County? Probably not, because they're not Lawrence County people. They are coming in, they're building these structures, they're selling these houses, they're fattening up their pockets, and as soon as they get those last homes sold, they're gone. And we may think we've got some control over them, that you're wishing down the wrong wishing well for that. Traffic is not the only impact that we're having and needs to be considered before these developments are approved. We've got to consider the livelihood of these small businesses and farms and agricultural businesses that are in our area. Other infrastructure concerns. Are we thinking ahead with other impact studies besides traffic, such as the environmental impact, public safety impact, the educational facilities, sanitation, recreation? That's the kind of teeth that we need to put into these zoning requirements or ordinances before the fact instead of after the fact, as was alluded to. Who's holding these developers to what they're promising? When they promise us walking trails and parks and community gazebos and community buildings, once they're out of town, those deep pockets are out of town too, and they're going to be hard to follow up on. I've seen it too many times. How can we guarantee that these amenities or promises from these developers are going to be there when they leave? Zoning will give us some strength. It will give us some teeth. And you have power in your positions. Your constituents have voted to give you power to work on our behalf. You should have the power over the developers instead of the developers having power over you. That's what we want you to do. So again, I'm saying don't give up your power to the developers. Stand there with the power that you have or that you have the opportunity to bring forward. Ask them to give up land for a public library on the property they're looking at. Ask them to give up some land for walking space and parks. You have the power to do that. Don't let them just come in and build these houses and walk away and offer nothing in return to Lawrence County other than you're going to have those screaming dollar signs that are going to come in. Yes, the dollars are going to come in, but have you planned for the police and the fire trucks and all those other things that I alluded to? So again, I know that we can't do a lot about the developments that have already been approved unless they're violating your conditions. But we can do something about future developments to put the power back on our side, and not on those people who are not Lawrence County people and are here to take advantage and then walk away. Thank you.
Ms. Garrison. And with that.
Well, Ms. Stewart, it's hard to follow. I want to thank all of you and thank you again, Ms. Anderson, for trying to get something moving forward. And I'm here to say basically the same thing that Ms. Stewart did, that we're asking y'all to put a moratorium on any more developments coming in until you get something in place. I mean, this is, to me, the proverbial putting the cart before the horse. I mean, because it is all of a sudden, I know y'all are trying really hard because it's been a big influx all of a sudden. But, you know, I sat there and I did some more research. I even kind of looked at some of our council members. I Googled and stuff like that. And I listened to a YouTube video of you a year ago. And you were stating that you knew growth was coming and that y'all were trying to put stuff in place to try to help Lawrence County grow well. And that is what us citizens and residents are definitely sitting here screaming right now because of the fact that we have all of a sudden this explosive growth that has just hit us, like blindsided us. And there's nothing stopping it. You know, we're not having anything, and I think our planning commission is trying, but I think that they're, you know, unsure, you know, of what they can and can't do. So very much more clear-cut things need to be put in place for them to feel like they have the power to, you know, say, no, we can't put, you know, we're not gonna approve this at this time for whatever reason it may be, you know, like we're working on DOT studies and different things like that. You know, it's just a great concern. It was a concern for you when you were talking about it, that you know, we knew this was coming. And I know these kind of things take time. This is not stuff that we can snap our finger and it happen overnight. But we just definitely need to start the process to stop it. And that's why I think a moratorium would be a great thing. And I was actually looking at the GSI map. I didn't pay attention when I was looking for signage for that Chubby Chase that was approved at last planning commission. It is going to end up be sitting right next to an industrial thing, the Shamrock Technology, which I think is just a distribution center actually, but it shows their retention pond comes right down to the property, the parcel line of this other development. You know, I don't know what all goes into this distribution center, you know, are there chemicals, are that kind of thing happening? So this is why safety for residents and people moving into these developments need to know, you know, I mean, it's directly beside something that's industrial and not residential. So I just, you know, I'm doing the same thing as Ms. Stewart in saying that we've got to slow down, we've got to stop until we have some things in place here in Lawrence County. Appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next.
I think Ms. Shirley did not know to sign up and she just had a statement. Is that okay? She is a quick one. Is
Sure.
that okay? Yeah.
I want to follow Nancy, but I got here before her. I just want to put a personal note on this, and let you know where we're from. We live actually, again, if you're familiar with Dark Corners, anybody familiar with that? It's literally the little tip where Lawrence County and Spartanburg and Greenville all come together. So 2 houses to my right is Greenville County. And then if you turn in front of my house, go to the stop sign, take a right, go to the stop sign, take a left, you're in Spartanburg County. So I am actually too late to do anything for our circumstances. What I don't, you know, you don't know what you don't know until it happens. But I lived in the country for 30 years and I loved it, but I've been swallowed up. And just recently on the Greenville County side, they're packing in about 50 houses at the end of my street. And what just happened on the Lawrence County side, there's some farmland there, and I know the man who has cut hay on that land for years. We were talking to him Saturday. I knew they were doing perk tests over there, but I wasn't worried about it because they've done perk tests before and failed. Well, guess what? The property sold. It closed last Friday. And also, and I don't know anything about this, excuse my ignorance, but you know what? I'm the average ignorant person who's out there. Ms. Anderson, I appreciate you saying you want the residents here to know what's going on, because I didn't know what's going on. So now I've got these bookend subdivisions have come in, and come to find out both of them have their own little, some sort of septic system. And we have a huge facility, a regular septic, 2 miles away from both of them. I didn't know residential places could have their own little septic things. Is that how they got around the perk test? I don't know. I'm dumbfounded. But as a resident, I feel a little bit bamboozled, you know, I'm just shocked. I just want to say that I am requesting a moratorium because right now, all the rights, all the leverage, all the power and all the momentum is on the side of the developers. And your residents who've been here, taxpayers who've been here 30, 40, 50, 60, in the case of Ms. Stewart, over 100 years, are getting blindsided and have no say. So it just seems a little offset. Thank you so much for taking the first step. And I feel for you. I can't imagine what the next step is going to be. I know last council meeting, you said you talked to a farmer, mentioned zoning and threatened you, with your life. I get it. But if that farmer was looking at 900 houses out his kitchen window, he might think it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next we will move into county council comments. I'll start on our right. Ms. Clark.
Okay, well, I just want to say thank the planning commission for the joint, workshop we had, very educational, I enjoyed that. And to CPW, thank you, congratulations on 100 years, and thank all of you for coming out this evening.
Comments this evening. I wanted to address the issue of ARPA funds and some kind of compensation going to our volunteer fire departments. I talked to Administrator Hicks even yet this evening that is still in process. It appears that there have been some gremlins thrown into the process by the fire unions up in the Northeast, specifically striking out volunteers. You can imagine how that works, how you go into first responders and you strike volunteers. I don't get that exactly, but the fact is that there is some language that makes that difficult. And we think that we're going to be able to work through it, but we can't. We're dealing with the realities as they are, and I just want to address that this evening, Mr. Chairman. Second thing that I'd like to bring up this evening is that I've been talking with you, Mr. Chairman, and with Thomas about arranging a conversation with former city manager Russell Allen. As well, I mean, I guess it's been so long now that a few of you would remember Russell because he's my age. But that Russell was the city manager of Clinton and just did a fabulous job and went on to spend 12 years in Rock Hill when it was going through exactly what we're going through now. I mean, they had this explosion up there. And then he decided that hand grenade explosion wasn't as much as he wanted, and so he went to Raleigh. And so he spent 12 or 13 years at Raleigh. And I contacted him recently to say, would you get on a Zoom call with county leaders down here that are interested, and let's just kick the ball around a little bit. Let's just see what observations you would have, knowing Lawrence County the way that you do, about mistakes or benefits of your experience in Rock Hill and Raleigh, and where the choke points are, and what are the effective tools. And I don't have any idea exactly where it's going to go. I haven't sat down with him enough to know, what his mantra would be, but he was gracious enough to want to spend some time with that. So I'd like to have a time when and make it possible for Jim to join us as well. And then open it up to the public. Those will set a time that's convenient for council and for the planning commission perhaps, and then staff and interested citizens and leaders of the different utilities might want to sit in on it and just see where it goes. I don't want to build it up to the point that you can't possibly live up to my height, but I think that what you see here is something where we see what's happening. And nobody knows exactly what to do about it. And we're looking for some guidance and some direction on that. And I'd like to put that ball in motion, Mr. Chairman, and find a time where we get together. I think it would be for people who care about Lawrence County, it would be a very stimulating hour.
If appropriate, I'd ask Ms. Griffin to reach out to all the council members and see if you can get some dates and times that would be acceptable. Ms. Youngs.
I like, if council or members of council, Mr. Stewart, isn't that Stewart Dairy Road where those houses are on acreage?
Which one?
Isn't that Stewart Dairy Road? You got those houses, it's real nice, it's something, I know everybody don't want a house with 15 acres of land, but the way this is laid out, I believe that's Stewart Dairy Road. The way it's laid out, you got houses on anywhere from 10 to 15 acres, and I'm not saying everybody wants 10, 15 acres, but the way that's laid out, and all I've heard about Lawrence County, they've got plenty of land. This would be something to take into consideration. people gonna commute, and they gonna, it's not that from Stewart Gary Road, you mean Greenville in 30 minutes, that's nothing, a lot of people commute a lot further than that. So it's just something to look at, and, the way they got these houses laid out on that acre. And, right up there, take a look, get a chance, Stewart Gary Road. That's it.
Ms. Anderson.
I'm going to pass this evening.
All right. I have a few things. First off, I want to echo what Mr. Turtle said on firemen. I want to make sure that our volunteers understand that they are a vital part of our community as first responders. And I want to commend the county administrator for working diligently. I get copied on a lot of emails, and he is trying his hardest to get us to the finish line on that. I think we're very close, and we'll be there very soon. Congratulations again to CPW. We appreciate all y'all do for our community. But I'm talking a little bit on the subdivisions and the requests that we've had this evening for moratorium. First, I want to say a little about myself to the point where I'm coming from. I definitely sympathize with Ms. Stewart on the family lineage. My family, I'm very fortunate. Our family's been in Lawrence County before it was Lawrence County. We have family members who still own the original piece of property and have the original house that was built 248 years ago. So I'm from Lawrence County, and I love this place. I actually lived in Simpsonville for 2 years, on about 15 acres, and what's happening to y'all, they're built subdivisions on either side, and it didn't take me long to pack my bag and come home. I currently live in a subdivision, and our minimum lot requirement is 2 acres. You can't own a lot in our subdivision smaller than 2 acres. Some of the other governments are a little ridiculous at times, but that is one of them. And the folks that established this subdivision in the 70s recognized they didn't want houses stacked on top of each other, and they wanted the woods, and there's trails and a waterfall and a pond. It's a pretty place to live, and I'm thankful enough to be able to raise my son there. So it's hard at times when we get these requests and hear these stories, because it is coming, and we're seeing it from the Spartanburg side and from the Greenville side. There is squeezing down, because if you ride through my district, District 4 is wide open. There are people that still own thousands of acres in a lot, which is rare these days. I recognize, and in my district, you won't find many giving them up either. That is the difference in where I live and the area I represent versus District 1, Mr. Youngster, that you got generations and the kids have moved to Atlanta or Charlotte or Charleston or Boston or wherever they move to, and when the family passes away, they don't care about Lawrence, so they're selling to the highest bidder. And what somebody said it to me before, and we got people that's got stupid money, and they're paying well over market value per acre. I've seen some go for $25,000 an acre, which is ridiculous. But at the same time, if somebody doesn't have any ties to Lawrence and they get offered that, I can't be mad at somebody for bettering their life. That's generational wealth for some of these people that are making these sales. I do think we're on the right path with Ms. Anderson's recommendation and motion this evening, and it will cause that. But I do want everybody to realize that zoning discussion and path that we're about to travel down is not a quick fix. It'll take years to properly evaluate and implement zoning. And if we have a decade at least, I feel like. But talking about the change, that's just the way to do it right. It can't happen overnight. Somebody mentioned the video. When the video was made, we were in the middle of adjusting the current subdivision ordinance. You can speak if you want to on exactly put them on the spot, but since when we put in a moratorium, we realized there was a problem, and we readjusted and we changed the subdivision ordinance. Since we've changed that ordinance, I'm not aware of any variance that's been granted. Have we granted any variances since we adjusted the subdivision ordinance? Okay. So I do want to commend the planning commission because, and council for that matter, they recognize the problems that stopped. That's what we did. We've got to curtail this. And it's comparable to some surrounding areas, but it is more stringent in places. I'll be honest, when they brought it back to us, it was more stringent than I expected it to be. But I was thankful for them doing that because it does slow growth down, because those developers have this number in mind of where they need to be.
feel like our ordinance is just beyond that number where they can do it and the lots are bigger because they want 43 lot widths on 4,500 square feet and they want to pack those things as tight as they can. We require on a regular subdivision, 70 feet and 8,000 square feet, 70 foot of road frontage on a normal lot. And that's what we require. And we're not going to grant a variance on that, I hope. So that does slow it down and that does stop it. The only exception to that is your, I can't remember what you call them, but your open area subdivisions that we are requiring the trails, and I believe it's 25% of usable green space. So we've had one come and try to use the swamp as part of their green space, and the planning commission turned them away. And they said, this is usable land. I believe one of our commissioners lived nearby and was like, you can't use that, it's swamp. So they are, I feel like the planning commission, at least since we have redone the subdivision, they are doing a good job at holding the developers' feet to the fire of what we've established. The only thing we haven't established, we've established the what, we just haven't established the where. And I feel like that's the step we made tonight, is addressing the where. But I do feel like we have a strong subdivision ordinance, and if developers are willing to abide by it, and some of the ones y'all hear about and the ones that are going near you were old, even before a lot of our times and before some of the commissioners' times, and they were small. They were those postage stamp lots, and it's rough. But I will say, since we've established the new ordinance, we've not granted variances, and we've seen less requests, in my opinion, of homes. And that's, in my opinion, right, among the good thing, because we do have all these approved subdivisions, and there's a few going on in the north part of the county, but outside of your area, we haven't had the ones that have said they're coming, haven't come yet. Even in the city of Lawrence, they've approved, it's a little over 2,000 homes just in the city limits, and 0 have broken ground. We're still behind the population level we were, and for the county anyways, in 2010. We're about 5% behind still, so we're still not where we once were. Until we get there, I'm not willing to issue a moratorium. If we ever make it there, I would consider it, given the fact that we're working towards possible zoning. But if we're still behind our highest ever population, I can't sit here and agree to stop it. Because you are right, it does pay tax dollars. But for me personally, that 500 home section of taxes isn't gonna be a lot on our budget. We're looking at budget numbers now, and it's not an impact. We don't sit here and say we just need to pile subdivisions in for more tax dollars. I don't think that's a good strategy personally. It does make a slight difference, but honestly, it doesn't make a big enough difference to cover the impact that they will cause, given our current tax millage rate. But we are looking at all these things, and the problem is it does move slowly, and it will not move fast enough for anybody. And for that, I do apologize, but we are doing things, small things, and we're taking small steps to slow it down and to ask for better subdivisions. Now, they're not 2-acre lots, but they are bigger than what the developers want to do. And we've had very few who have come in and decided to go ahead and do the bigger lots. But when we did that, I'm telling you, a lot of them turned away because it hurt their pocketbook and it hurt their profit margin, and they decided not to come here. The ones that are, we appreciate their investment. And there are a couple of these big boys that are investing in this community that actually do live here. Not all of them, but the one that we got 400 homes going next to my subdivision. They bought up all the land that was left over that never got developed in mine. Somebody came in and bought it at a stupid price, and they're building it out. And it's somewhere around 400 homes. And I'm not happy about it. I'll be honest about that, but it's their land, and if they follow the ordinances that are set in place, there's not much I can do about it at the moment. And that's what zoning, because Lawrence City has zoning. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Zoning doesn't fix all the problems either. If you're zoning residential, it'll affect what goes where. But it is a good step in the right direction, and I think that we're on the right path. And I commend fellow council members for being willing to take that step and encourage that discussion. And we'll be in prayer for the staff as we journey down this path. It will be long hours and hard work and angry phone calls and who knows what else, but it will be well worth it in the end. We are working in that direction. So I probably spoken too long. That will be my comments. But I want to, as always, I appreciate the citizens who do show up. And I appreciate the citizens who do speak out. You've been heard, and while it's too late for your area, you will definitely make a difference in others' lives, and it will make a difference in the future of your area. Somewhat, but some of the ones that are there, but you speaking up and being willing to continue to speak up, even though you probably know that what's happening next door to you isn't going to change. I commend you for that, because you're doing a well service for the rest of the citizens. Thank y'all for that. I would like to call on the county administrator. I believe he has an announcement to make before we move into executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I try not to interject myself into comments that are more the agenda if not needed, but I've got somewhat of a bittersweet announcement to make tonight. It's hard for me, but again, it's bittersweet. Mr. Joey Avery, who served as our emergency management director and 911 director, tendered his retirement notice to be effective 31 May. After 30 years and I know you'd be mad if I didn't get right, 30 years and 5 months of service to Lawrence County Board of Citizens of Lawrence County. Is and I could go through his accomplishments and we'd be here all night. He developed a 911 system in the emergency management field. You know, people trained for decades and decades about how to respond to a pandemic, and Mr. Avery did that. He walked the walk and saved hundreds, if not thousands, of lives here in Lawrence County through his efforts. Every time somebody picks up the phone and calls 911, you have a trained, organized staff to respond to those needs, and that's a direct reflection of Mr. Avery's leadership and training. You know, I told him the other day, he and I are cut from the same cloth. I respect him, but moreover, I love him as a friend. You never find a better guy than Mr. Avery. I begged and pleaded for Mr. Avery to talk to his wife, and she fulfilled my request that he helped me through the interview process. And we're going to have some big shoes to fill, but when I'm trying to fill those shoes, it gives me a great sense of comfort to have him by my side while I'm trying to do it. And then he's going to assist in that transition for the county. So we're not going to skip a beat here in Lawrence County, and I'm glad to know that Mr. Avery is going to be by my side to make sure that happens. So just wanted to tell the council that, anybody in the crowd or listening at home, it's a tremendous loss for Lawrence County, and I know he's not going far, but it's a tremendous gain for his family, because I know that he's going to be able to be spending more time with them, and I'm going to ring his phone off the hook, I'm sure, so he's not going very far. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that announcement. Just to echo your statement, will be extremely missed. 30 years and 5 months is a long time to serve this county. He has truly served it. Mr. Avery is extremely humble. He's not here tonight. I hope he will, if he's not listening, he will make sure revert back. But we are grateful for his service and all that he has done for all the members of this community. He was our go-to for anything emergency management related. He wrote the book in this county on how 911 is done. He constantly fought for his staff. We have a really nice 911 facility because of him. He's done great on grants. As the administrator mentioned, there will be ginormous shoes to fill. And I'm glad that he's going to be a part of that. And knowing he'll be close by, I saw him today go out for lunch, and I was giving him a hard time about not coming so we could recognize him. And I told him we will throw him a retirement party. It's going to be his choice whether or not he shows up. So it's a service that should be recognized, and we look forward to doing that here shortly. With that being said, we do have 2 matters for executive session. One employment matter, human resources, and one contractual matter related to EMS. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session? Motion by Mr. Carroll. Second by Ms. Anderson. All those in favor of moving to executive session for the 2 matters mentioned, please raise your right hand. 6-0. The time is now 7:04. We will reconvene in executive session at 17.
That's all.
Time is now 7:44, and council will reconvene in open session. Council meeting executive session to discuss two matters, human resources employment matter and a professional matter related to EMS. No action was taken in executive session, but I will open the floor if any motions need to be made.
Mr. Chairman, if you will, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the county administrator to post, engage in the search for, and hire for the position of emergency management 911 director.
Second.
You've heard the motion by Mr. Carroll and the second by Ms. Anderson. Is there any discussion? And I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Is there any other motions that need to be made? And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, second by Ms. Clark. All those in favor? All those in favor? 6-0. You can stay here if you want to, it don't matter.
Motion toward the door.
I gotta go home and shake